Hey guys, and welcome to another brand new video. In this video, we actually have some pretty intriguing stuff to go talk about in regards to why the PlayStation 5 is still a little bit on the harder side to go and get, as well as also kind of how a lot of industries and kind of the next prolonged expectations on the semiconductors, the overall stock movement, all that stuff, and also this kind of pertains a little bit too as well to say the AMD crisis, to the GPU crisis, to car crisis, and everything else all kind of put together. We haven't really covered too much on the whole macroeconomic, I guess everything in the entire world stuff as well for a little bit, so I figured right now would probably be a fun time to go and talk about it and just kind of bring it on up and kind of give you guys a little bit more of a deep dive. There's also a bit of a pretty intriguing Yahoo article, so I'm going to go talk about that and kind of chime in my own thoughts on top of it too as well as we're kind of discussing it, because it is kind of an intriguing thing to note, and although these sometimes are more on the doom and gloom side, it is always intriguing to note that we have still been seeing a lot more restocks, and although we do keep on seeing these big companies churning out as much stock as they can, as quickly as they can, as hopefully cheaply as they can, it still is definitely be a big fork in the road for at least the next year or so. So don't be too sad. That's why we have this whole entire channel to give you guys all the best places to look for restocks, so make sure you guys are subscribed with the notifications on for that, and the PS5 giveaway stuff for that, but as well also just for general news like this to kind of give you guys just kind of up-to-date stuff. As well, we always have the Amazon links down below for the PS5 Digital Console Controller, the Twitter and Twitch stream as well down below, and sign up for Weeble and all that good stuff in case you guys would like to go and dive on into it with me. So the very first thing to kind of note is that when it comes to the PlayStation 5 and Xboxes, I'm sure you guys have seen throughout the years, they're still hard to go and get, although they've been slowly becoming a little bit easier. Xbox Series X first and foremost, a little bit more widely available. We usually have the links down below for those two for proper normal retail. As well, I've also had a pretty good PlayStation 5 restock week so far, so it does seem like there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I still think a lot of the big stuff will be more so on scalpers and botters kind of clearing their way on this, and once that's a little bit more cleared on out, everything should be a little bit nicer. But for this, we actually have an article over here from Yahoo Finance discussing why you shouldn't expect to get a PlayStation 5 anytime soon. And this is still funny enough now a year and a half after the fact as well. So buying a PS5 isn't getting any easier. So like I said, I'm going to kind of charm on this a little bit myself. For more than a year, finding a successfully buying one of Sony's PlayStation 5 consoles has been nearly impossible for millions of gamers around the world. Though funny enough, I will go and give our own kind of pats on our backs over here. I think a lot of people who have been subscribed throughout the past year and a half have definitely gotten their consoles either way, which is very cool to go and see, and I love helping you guys out getting your consoles. The console, which launched in November 2020, is one of the most sought after consumer tech products in the market. True. When it's available, stock sells out for it feels like an instant. True. Mainly because of bots, though. It doesn't help that you frequently have to sign up for services like Walmart. Actually, not the worst. I would still fully vouch for Walmart Plus. It was a phenomenal drop this week. Or Amazon. Amazon's definitely on the rougher side. As a resident tech expert, my friends and family regularly hit me up about when they'll be able to get their grubby mitts on a PS5, and I'm tired of figuring out different ways to tell them the same thing, I'm not sure. That's because you're not subscribed to me, probably, or anyone else who does a lot of the tracking stuff, because we even have a confirmed drop, I believe, going on for tomorrow as well, which will have more details on the channel itself, or as well, like the PS Directs, the Walmart drops, the Targets that are now regularly having stock, the Best Buy glitches on how to get stock, and other stuff too as well. So the reason, as kind of like their usual kind of go-to, the chip shortage. But I always would want to say the bigger issue, at least to my opinion, really is more in regards to botters and scalpers. Because I mean, obviously the chip shortage is rough, but if you more so have the stock instantaneously being yoinked by botting groups, just that basically kind of reset the third-party selling prices, I think that does kind of put a bit more pressure on the market than the production, because they're still making millions of these consoles. It's not like they're making 100,000 a year. They're already at 17, 18 million at this point. It's still pretty high up there. And normal people do get their consoles too. So I mean, people are going to probably be blaming the semiconductor issue for the next 5 years, even when things are mostly back to normal. Shipping, though, I will probably always agree on too as well, where the shipping issues are still everywhere. We are still seeing really big cargo ships getting stuck. We're still seeing ports having a lot of issues. We've even been seeing China itself going through ongoing lockdowns again. So it does kind of affect that a little bit more. And I almost want to say, since the chip shortage is still ongoing, they are still making chips, etc. I do think more so the shipping is bigger issues, because you have to move the materials, you have to move the supplies, you have to pretty much move everything out there at the end of the day. And it does kind of seem like, although it's not in the news as heavily, it almost kind of seems like it's getting worse, just based on some of the lockdowns in other countries that we've covered, as well as just sometimes like even these big factory kind of basically productions are just kind of halting down. And as well, this also did go and show that the PS5 did want to cut their units by 3.3 million by 2022. So a big thing to kind of note too, and it's kind of like just even more of like a net, like I feel like I haven't talked about chip shortages in a while. The global chip shortage started when consumers around the world were forced indoors on the onset of the pandemic. The massive number of people seeking everything from laptops to headsets to displays and all the other stuff put a lot of big pressures on the global chip makers. And also, obviously, you guys have probably heard a lot, it didn't help that the automotive industry initially cut orders thinking that people wouldn't want to buy cars or worry about the stuff, and then they are like, wait a second, this is actually going to the moon, we probably should be making more and more and more. And funny enough, automakers are still having issues with this deal, basically having to strip features from new trucks just to get them on the showroom floor too as well, and also used cars going absolutely high too on top of that. So the one kind of intriguing stuff. Industry experts initially thought that the shortage would ease at the second half of 2022, which we're not fully there yet, but we're slowly getting there every day. But now it's clear that chip makers will have to contend with elevated demand and tight supplies for literally at this point years. And we've been hearing this for a while. Like, we really have been hearing this for quite some time. In February, AMD CEO Lisa Su told Yahoo Finance that supplies will remain tight in the first half of 2022 before improving the second half of the year, and that's not to say the shortage will be ending at all. We expect consoles to grow this year, said Su, whose company provides the chips for the PlayStation 5. We expect to increase supply because there's a very strong demand in the market, which has not really happened. It's not to go. I think they are trying their best, and we have been seeing good restocks, but it does kind of go to show that even though all these experts and really big people out here too as well, just not doing too good. Like, they're just really not making as much money as they'd be expecting, and as well, they're not making as many semiconductors as they're expecting. It's kind of just been a little bit more of like they had to like shorthand all this stuff in general. So also we had Intel CEO Pat Gelsinger also tell Fox Business that the shortage won't be abate until 2024, even though they were trying to push to 2023. Which I just think a lot of these people just don't really know what they're talking about. Because at the end of the day, I think it's a very big ebb and flow where it depends on the products, depends on the Unix, depends on the people, depends on pretty much everything in the world. And it does kind of stink because it does seem like it just, like there's always constantly pushing it back and back and back. Given the current situation and some of the continuing challenges in areas like equipment for semiconductor manufacturing, I now believe it's probably going to extend to 2024 until we start to see that balance start to redevelop. Which I do think a lot of things for this also kind of ties into the fact of, what's it called? When it comes to stuff like, let's say, more so the factories. Like a lot of these really big factories, such as like Intel, want to go open up their brand new semiconductor plants, or even things like TSMC want to go and expand to other regions to basically just make bigger stuff. And I really think whenever that is fully in motion, that is when pretty much everything will be solved. And we see a lot of that stuff coming for 2023 and 2024. Now, thankfully, a lot of these semiconductors are still being utilized and being made, and people are still making consoles and getting stuff or whatever it is. But the bigger struggle still to this day is the fact that you need to go have all the chips. The chips are being spread out everywhere, and it still is not being as sorted as we expect. And that kind of does stink because the PlayStation 5 is relatively getting easier and easier in the general sense, and that's just more on the demand side of people who want their consoles probably already have it. A lot of people who want to bought from scalpers probably bought from scalpers. And although there's a really big demand still, I mean, obviously I'm still making YouTube videos discussing the restocks, even a video like this, a lot of it does go to show that it is at least thankfully calming down. Same thing as well with the Xbox Series X, where it does stay in stock at least a little bit longer and at least a little bit extra hours in comparison to how it was a few months ago. Although I still want to go and say one of the bigger issues still is more on the botting side. Now, when it comes to this stuff too, I really think if they can calm down the botting side, it'd be a little bit better. You know, this article even goes and says like retailers haven't made it easy for consumers to look for the PS5s either. Which I'd probably go and say Amazon is a good example. They like just basically let it up to bots, and it's just not a good or proper restock. It doesn't flow well, people don't get it, normal bots get it, and the bots bypass all the issues. Although things like GameStop, I want to always say for GameStop, Walmart, they're not really the biggest issues because you pay $15, but it tones down the botting, it tones down the scalping, and it basically saves you, like, you know, some people maybe bought their console from Walmart Plus like 6 months ago, and guess what? They paid $15 to get their console, and some people are still waiting from that 6-month period. So at the end of the day, I would still say it's pretty good too, in my honest opinion. So some people are kind of still anti the price points too, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't think that's the biggest hindrance. I think if anything, that's actually a beneficial thing, because some people would rather pay $13 than have to wait an extra 2 years, or pay $13 and pay an extra $700 for a price point for, you know, a PlayStation 5 console. So at the end of the day, it is still kind of based a lot more on the semiconductor, where it doesn't really seem like it's getting easier or better, or more like, you know, chill, especially as analysts are now keep on delaying their price points and delaying their actual expectations. And it does kind of stink because we had some high hopes for 2022, although with the semiconductors, the cargo, the overall just ongoing global issues with extra lockdowns as we've covered, factories now shutting down, and everything else mixed on in, it's still going to be hard, I think, for these next few months to still go get your PlayStation. Although, thankfully, a lot of this stuff is still getting easier as more and more people get their consoles and more companies work with their anti-botting measures. But it does kind of sting, too, because I kind of wish we could have these consoles way earlier, and I kind of wish this would have been a little bit more of an easier ride, and I kind of wish I would have been done by now. I would have talked about other Restock stuff or other gaming news besides Restocks. But I will still be here helping you guys out until, well, I hope you guys all get your consoles, so make sure you guys are subscribed with the notifications on as well for the brand new PlayStation 5 giveaway. Amazon links down below for the PS5 Digital Console Controller. Twitter and Twitch stream as well, linked down below, and sign up for Webull and Coinbase. And I appreciate you guys all so much for watching. Give me your thoughts and comments down below.